Safety meeting. First one up is District Attorney. Anybody here, Kelly?
Yeah, Paul's here. Hopefully he has a voice. DA Chaika? He had a problem yesterday.
He's on mute right now, it looks like.
Yeah, it says he's on.
Mr. DA, can you hear us?
Hover down below Paul and turn your mic on. Let me see if I can get him by phone. Hello. Okay, so you're on. Your personnel request is up. If you'd like to talk to the committee. Okay.
Hello.
Go ahead, Paul, talk. Everyone can hear you.
I believe my request is mandatory. I see.
Are you still there? Okay, we can't hear you now. We could hear you when you first were on.
I said I believe my request is self-explanatory.
Mike?
Can you go? All right, so we're doing taking a time.
You're taking a full-time confidential office administrator position to a part-time due to the COVID-19 on a temporary basis.
On a temporary basis. There's no time indicated when this might change.
Anytime, Paul, when this will change.
I assume that you'll give me an opportunity to make the change once the crisis is resolved.
Okay. All right, anybody have any questions or want to make a motion?
Ray Stats will move it.
I'll second it, Fury.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
You're good to go, Paul.
This will save the county about $32,000 for the rest of the year, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. DA. Who's next?
Hold on one sec for me.
I keep trying to scroll these pages that you control, Kel.
It's EMS, PJ.
Yep, I'm here. Kelly, you just want to scroll to the chart?
And I just have to flip it, PJ, so bear with me here.
There you go. Great. Basically, just an update on the COVID, on the pandemic crisis that we've been going through. The cooperation that was between the 911 center and EMS. Basically, we instituted a policy whereby the 911 center would ask the appropriate questions of the caller, and if they met the certain criteria, they would advise all the responding EMS agencies that respiratory precautions were advised. What that meant was the caller would state that they had signs and symptoms that were similar to the COVID virus. And that would allow EMS to wear the appropriate PPE, which would be full gowns, gloves, N95 mask, face shield as well. And you'll see the number of times that happened over since, I can't read the bottom, but I believe it's like March 20th up until just a few days ago. And you can see that has leveled off in the last week or so, which is a good sign. But I just want to commend 911 for their efforts in keeping EMS staff safe all through this pandemic so far. And I want to knock on wood somewhere. We have had no more than a 5% workforce depletion through this whole event. And basically that was one of our worst fears, was the workforce depletion. Had some of the staff become sick or ill and being quarantined for 7 to 14 days. These agencies are still transporting these patients, although the numbers have dwindled. They're still out there. Nursing homes are still affected, obviously. But in addition to that, there are still COVID cases out there. Each time they transport one of these individuals, they go through an extreme decontamination process, which includes decontaminating themselves, showering, and decontaminating the ambulances. This takes probably about an hour and a half each time a patient's transported. So it's been a lengthy effect. It's going to continue. We're not letting our guard down. We know it's not going away, and just wanted to give you an idea of what they go through. In addition to that, REMO has allocated money, and we have given CMH and other hospitals in the region decontamination sprayers so that the agencies can use those to decontaminate the ambulance after they've transported a patient. Of interest to note, we looked at our call volume for April and May during this time period as well, and normal calls were down about 300 to 400 calls during this time period, which coincides with the ER saying they didn't have patients, so on and so forth. So it's a collaboration. The numbers are the numbers, and just wanted to give you an idea of what they went through and still going through.
Yeah. Thank you, PJ.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions about that?
I just want to thank 911 and all of our EMS workers, 911 for adding this in to keep everyone safe. It's nice to see those numbers coming down, and everyone's been doing a stellar job. So thank you to all of those involved in that.
Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, PJ. Rob?
The only thing I have for tonight is agency data for May of 2020. Our call volume for May of 2020 was 4,379 calls. That's just incoming calls. I did include a stat from last year, even though PJ had identified the EMS calls are down, our call volume was up. As you see, May of 2019, our call volume was 4,189 calls. In May of 2020, we dispatched 975 EMS agencies. 472 fire agencies, 1,386 police polls, and 735 public service calls. And that's all I have.
Could you mute your computer?
Okay.
Okay, Rob, any comments or questions regarding that information? Thank you very much, Rob.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have the sheriff's information. I think what we'll do is We have one general resolution. We'll go through this and then we'll have a little discussion afterwards. How's that sound?
All right, good evening, everyone. The resolution that we have on the table is to renew the contracts with Ichabod Crane, Taconic, Hudson, New Lebanon, Chatham, and Germantown for the school resource deputy program. It's been a very positive program. The schools, the staff, the children, everybody really is enjoying this. They are a true member of the school community now, and it's great to see that type of partnership. There's no issue with the kids having any problems. Matter of fact, it's interesting to see how the kids actually flock to the deputies now and go to them for help and for a mentor. So I'm requesting that we renew these agreements for the upcoming school year.
Ray Stats, move it.
I'll second it.
Chairman, can I ask a question before we vote?
Sure.
Hi, Sheriff Bartlett. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Tistria Hotline with New Lebanon. My question is regarding, school budgets obviously are looking at tremendous cuts. They've already had discussions, I know, in the New Lebanon School District about, where to cut back on spending because of the decreased state revenues, because of increased COVID expenses. I'm assuming that each of these school districts has already said, yes, we want this in our budget, and that they have the money there to fulfill the contract.
Yes, there's no issues as far as that. Basically, you can't really put a price on safety. We've seen the different incidents that have happened throughout the country. These deputy sheriffs are, as well as all the deputy sheriffs, are highly trained. And these individuals, with their school resource deputy training, it's a great asset to have there. It'd be such a shame that if it ever did get cut from the budget and something did happen in the school, that would be quite a tragedy. But I have not, I have spoken to the majority of the schools. I have not spoken to Leslie yet. I can do that. But everybody else is on board who I've spoken with.
Yeah, and I will say I have 3 children in the New Lebanon Elementary School at Walter B. Howard, and they love our deputy. So it's not a question of that. I think it is, of utmost importance. I just wanted to make sure that the school had committed to spending the $40,000 before we renewed contracts. That's all.
Yeah, Patrick's a great guy up there. He's
Yeah.
You have to have the right person and the right personality to be a school resource deputy. It just can't be anybody. And that's why actually when we pick them, a lot of stuff that we do is done on seniority basis. It'll be a sign-up sheet, and then they'll sign their name, and the senior person gets it. School resource deputies aren't that. We have it, it's at the discretion of the sheriff, because I need that proper person to be in the school. I can't have somebody that's not going to interact well. So Pat's an awesome guy.
He greets all the kids with high fives at the entrance to the school each morning. So it's nice to see him there. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have motions on that.
We have a motion and a second.
Hi, this is Supervisor Michael Shimidas. I just wanted to jump in. Sheriff Bartlett, I really appreciate all the work that you're doing and the school resource officers. I know on the previous meeting in the Health and Human Services, it looked like that we were cutting mental health services at some of the schools, or maybe it's Columbia Green. I wasn't quite catching what happened at the last meeting. But I just think if we're looking holistically, I find it really unfortunate that we're cutting back, we're cutting back on services for schools. And certainly as much as we need school resource officers, I think that we need mental health services more. And so I just think we need to look holistically about where we're spending our money as a county.
Well, don't forget, we get reimbursed for this also. We get $40,000 reimbursement on this.
If I could jump in, Chairman Benvenuto, I will say that at the last meeting, we put a pause or a reset on the on mental health services. We didn't say that we're cutting them. Michael Cole had informed us that it is losing money, and I think with the situation that the schools are in and that we're in, it's good to at least take a step back, take a look at it. Maybe and we said in September we would reevaluate it.
And these guys and girls that are in there are more than just cops. I mean, even through this whole COVID thing, they've been out visiting kids. Lately, there's been a lot of visits to homes. Hudson did pizzas for all the kids that were doing their schoolwork. I got to actually experience a couple of those deliveries and just seeing the kids coming out and they wanted to hug the deputy. And you want to talk about mental health. These kids love these deputies. And it was like, hey, we still got to maintain our 6 feet, buddy. And it was like, oh, thank you, Deputy Zach, or thanks, Deputy Plas. And they actually made, Ichabod did senior, like the best way to describe it is political science, for all the seniors with their photos. And they made one up for Sam up there, Deputy Samantha Plas, because they truly are a avenue for the kids to come and speak. Mental health is a big thing also. These kids need to talk to people, but they absolutely come in and talk to the deputy too. It's more than just having a cop on the school grounds.
So the mental health services is going to be revisited in September,
Yes,
part of the budget?
yes.
Okay.
We called it a reset just because in a lot of cases, we don't know where we're going to end up. We don't know where the schools are going to end up at this point in time. So
I have a question, if I may. What is our contribution to this? If the school pays 40, what do we pay?
It goes on an individual basis, Supervisor, from what the deputy's base pay is. All the pays are different. And when they aren't in the school, then they're out on the road, or this year they couldn't do it. But they're working at camps, going to town playgrounds, going out and mentoring in the public during the off time. So if they aren't in the school, then they're on the streets, either patrolling the streets. Another thing that we also utilize them for during the summertime, it's roughly a 50-50 split. 50% will go out and engage in the public with the parks and working with the kids. The other 50% would be used to cover any type of overtime, because there's vacations and whatnot during the summer for security services. So that eliminates the overtime and cuts down on the overtime there.
So you must have some idea what it costs to be in the school. That was my comment. I guess you don't. Thank you.
Well, I don't want to say that, Supervisor. I don't have each individual person's thing in my lap.
we can itemize each deputy in each school and come up with an exact total.
I can say it does run about 50-50 with his budget.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, so I just wanted to address the fact that supervisors have received, I've seen 2 emails within the past week from members of the public asking questions about the Sheriff's Department, generally in regards to budgeting and, what type of training factors and policies are in place. So I've spoken with the sheriff a couple times. Chairman Morels spoke with the sheriff. Sheriff Bartlett is putting information together. He got copies of these emails. He's putting information together regarding that. The budget process actually is coming up. It'll be before this committee in August. But in regards to policies, the sheriff's putting information together, plus the governor has indicated that he wants some sort of redesign of policing through each municipality, and it's going to be tied to state aid. In that process, whatever the specific process is supposed to be, is supposed to be completed by April 1st. Now I do know two things about the Sheriff's Department. It's an accredited agency, and I was just looking around before our meeting, and what I found, the reaccreditation, Sheriff, I believe, is at 5-year intervals.
Yes, sir.
And it was last reaccredited in the end of 2017. And it's accredited by the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. So it is the state involvement. And I'll just read what the information that I got. The aim is to increase effectiveness and efficiency of law enforcement agencies, promote increased cooperation and coordination among law enforcement agencies and other agencies, ensure the appropriate training of law enforcement personnel, and promote public confidence in law enforcement agencies. And like I said, that's through the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. The other thing that I found that, well, this was at the end of 2017, of the approximately 540 police agencies that are eligible for accreditation, at that time, only 150 or 28% were actually accredited. So, I mean, it is quite a heavy lift to go through this process, but as part of it, you have to make sure you continually make sure your policy and procedures are up to date. They go over everything, personnel, training. So moving forward on this process that the governor's talked about, this is one major factor for Columbia County Sheriff's Department, that they are an accredited agency. And like I said, the sheriff, I didn't want him to rush and try to put a bunch of stuff together for this meeting, but he is going to put information together, and it will be disseminated to the supervisors and, of course, the Public Safety Committee.
And as well as the law enforcement division being accredited, 4 out of the other 5 divisions are also accredited. Accreditation for corrections happened under Sheriff Harrison as well as law enforcement. Under Sheriff Davey and myself were both the program managers for that, so we're very familiar with what DCJS and the New York State Sheriff's Association is asking for. And then when I became sheriff, I got the Civil Division and Security Services Division also accredited. So as Supervisor Benvenuto says, it's a big lift. It's a good lift because it shows the professionalism of the men and women that are in the department. These rules and regulations aren't just something that's picked out of a hat. They're governed. Law Enforcement Division is governed by DCJS, Division of Criminal Justice Services, and then the other 3 divisions are overseen by the New York State Sheriff's Association. And there's even less accredited agencies in those other 3 than there is in law enforcement. So it's a pretty good feather in our cap. And we've also got assessors and whatnot on board. So we actually go out and do assessments in other agencies and help other agencies that they're trying to get accredited.
Great. Chairman Benvenuto, may I speak for a moment?
Yes.
So it sounds like in conversations both with you, Chairman, and hearing Sheriff Bartlett speak, it sounds like a lot of the questions that came through about de-escalation and banning chokeholds, it sounds like we already have a lot of that in place. So I'm really looking forward to Sheriff Bartlett, that list of policies from you. Thank you for preparing that. And maybe by next month's meeting, we'll be able to look that over. I think there's nothing better than to be able to say, we see nationwide some concerns, and look, we're already doing X, Y, and Z. And hopefully the answer is we have everything great, and maybe some things need to be tweaked. And if so, then we can have that conversation. So thank you for being proactive in that. I do also have 2 questions, just because I'm fairly new to both this committee and the Board of Supervisors. I'm wondering, and this might be Sheriff Bartlett, it might not be, I'm actually not sure, if at some point before next month's public safety meeting, I could get a budgetary analysis of what we're spending for building security. I was just on the Health and Human Services call before. there's 2 deputies at DSS. We have someone at 401 State Street. My understanding is probation and mental health also have deputies for security. Is there a way, either Sheriff Bartlett or Chairman Benvenuto, that you could email us kind of a breakdown of what we're spending for the county buildings that we're providing security for?
If I could jump in, I will say that in terms of the upcoming budget process, we're looking at all facets of not only the sheriff's department, but other agencies as well.
Okay.
As you know, we're in terms of COVID-19 and what potentially it could do to our budget, we're going to have to take a hard look at every area of the budget. But in terms of that information, yeah, we can provide that.
Okay. Wonderful. And my last question that's kind of related, Chairman Morrell, you had mentioned with the ability for the jail staffing to come down by 5, and we were able to furlough, which was a temporary COVID immediate situation, but you had talked about a timeline for getting overall staffing at the jail down. And I was just wondering what type of timeline. I absolutely agree with you that the answer is not to take someone who's worked for the county for 30 years and say, sorry, we're cutting staff, you're out. And I like your idea of, people are up for retirement, we'll kind of naturally slim it down. I'm just wondering, are we talking 6 months from now? Are we talking 5 years from now? How long are we talking before those retirements come into play where we can naturally kind of decrease that staffing?
If I could jump in, right now I was able to get staffing. Hold on, let me fix my phone again. I was able to get staffing down. They didn't want to do it, and the commissioner is a retired sheriff, so I called him and I told him, hey, FYI, everybody's in dire need of money, cutting budget, so on and so forth. So when I talked to Commissioner Riley, he was able to give me 1 on the midnight shift, 2 on the day, and 2 on the 3 to 11. But they're still concerned with a couple things. Number one, COVID. And yes, the jail population is way down. We're probably at about 31, 32 right now. And the second thing they're concerned with is bail reform. They don't know where bail reform is going. This is coming right out of Albany. And with the different things that you're seeing now, with people being let go, they're concerned with that. So they still aren't sure if bail reform is going to stay where it is or if there's going to be some type of change. Is there a need for bail reform? Yeah, there is. Because when Johnny Smith's sitting in there on a petty larceny because he doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together, Johnny shouldn't be in there on a petty larceny. But when people are getting let go on more serious charges, the judges have to be able to have that leeway. So Albany's still not sure. So that's why they're kind of in limbo right now as far as staffing. All jails are down, population count. And again, Alan was great with me getting those bodies, and it was able to help with number one, cutting overtime, because overtime is going to be cut dramatically, and then also doing the furloughs too.
Yeah, as I had said the last meeting, my goal would be to work with the sheriff in terms of trying to permanently reduce the staffing, but doing that not through layoffs, not through any other means, but doing it through attrition. So when people retire, you may not want to replace them, but we would have to work together to try to get the state to agree to do it on a permanent basis. I mean, as I said the last meeting, we were thankful that we were allowed to do this because it allowed us to do the furloughs without incurring overtime. So,
may I jump in? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why my camera's not working. It worked for the last meeting. It's always worked. It's not working now. So I'm here incognito, Jean Metler. So I want to tell you all that I guess this executive order from the governor came out, I believe, on the 12th. And it was actually on the 11th that I called up Sheriff Bartlett. And we had a really good conversation, I think. I hope he thinks so too.
Absolutely.
I asked him about what was going on, and I said to him, "Do you think it might be a good idea to get some kind of a conversation going with the public, with the police, with the police, with the supervisors, just in a non-confrontational way, to try to get at to have some better understanding on the part, not just of the supervisors, I guess, myself included, but also the public of what the sheriff's department is doing, and to talk about what the procedures are, and to talk about what policies are. And in the course of that conversation, not only did he say that he was open to that kind of a conversation, but he also said to me in I think it was 35 years that the department has not had any kind of a report or complaint of excessive force. He used different words, but that was the gist of it. And I said to him, well, what about chokeholds? I don't even know. I said, are they illegal? And he said, we haven't used chokeholds forever. So I said, well, you know what? That's the kind of information that should be out there. So my feeling about this issue is it's not just about the actual accreditation or the standards in the police department. It's also about there's a public relations component here. There's the issue of what does the public know? What does the public think? Does the public do they have a sense of confidence? And that's, I think it's incumbent on us to try to get at that. Well, that was on the 11th, and Sheriff Bartlett said, yeah, we could do that. We could have a conversation. We could put if the Board of Supervisors, if the chairman wanted to do it, that would be an interesting thing. Well, the next day, then the governor came out with this really ambitious, far-reaching, comprehensive and very demanding executive order. And, I don't know what the county's take on that is, where we'll go with that and who will set that up and what you think it might look like. But I do appreciate what I think has been said here tonight is that in the meantime, that Sheriff Bartlett could address the various issues that were raised by this. The email that I'm talking about was by Amelia McIsaac. And she asked really basic questions that I don't know the answer to. I asked the one about chokeholds, but also about de-escalation, requiring a warning before shooting, et cetera, et cetera. Some of them, the answer may be in the affirmative. Some of them maybe not, and maybe they shouldn't be. But I just would like the idea that before, I think that this complying with the executive order that's a big climb. I mean, we're really going to have to work at that. It's going to involve a lot of steps. I just hope that in the short run and very proactively, and that the county could respond to these kinds of questions and get that information out there, because I think it's important that the public knows that we're on it, that we take it seriously, that we hear what's going on, and that we're concerned. And that's what I'm looking at.
And Jeannie, even the governor's executive order, my mic's on. We're a lot farther along than people would ever even imagine because of the things that we already do, and we interact with the public. We do different things. So I've already been looking at this since day one and working with my staff, and we should be fine with that. I mean, it's there's a couple things in that order. There's some questions that we all have. Why don't the state police have to do it? The state police are exempt from it, but every other agency is. There's a few things that the governor has excluded, but that's not even for this discussion. That's for the New York State Sheriff's Association to talk to him if he will even talk to him about it, if they'll talk to him about it.
So,
I just think we have to embark on a conversation, and I don't think anybody should be defensive about this. It's incumbent upon us right now that are involved in government to address these very serious issues, and I appreciate that Sheriff Bartlett is willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the sheriff has that particular email, and what was included in it. The chokeholds, for instance, the first thing on the list, that was a bill that the governor just signed. So that's banned in New York State.
And they weren't even doing those. They don't even teach those.
Right. They're not trained, but
not at all.
So the other thing, which actually I just thought about for the new members of this committee and the people who were there, perhaps could remind me. It was last year sometime. We had a huge public safety special meeting in the Board of Supervisors chambers with a large group of members of the public. I don't quite remember when it was exactly, but we did. The sheriff was there, the police chief from Hudson was there. We went on and we took questions, and so we have done something like this before, and it obviously can be done. But I just wanted to point out that this particular committee did do something like that last year. I think it was after a drug raid in Hudson or something spurred it, but we had a huge, long conversation, and I think it ended up actually pretty well. So,
Hey, Mike, I can interrupt you. It was based on the complaint I had about the extreme force used in Hudson with the militarization of the police and the sheriff and all the people that came into Hudson. And that was what it was about.
right.
And it was a conversation that was quite heated, and that's what happened. I mean, I think we've talked about mental health, and we've been very aggressive about that particular section of the county, and maybe it's time to really look at the sheriff and the corrections and really go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, there's a lot of issues. What's going to happen with the jail? The population is decreasing. What is the future going to be? Maybe sheriffs are not the answer to security. Maybe there's other means of security that's more efficient, cheaper, less of a burden on the county. Hudson has done something very new and exciting about reform. We have the idea of Chatham Cares, the duplication of that in our community, instead of putting people in jail, but trying to help people, divert them into programs, mental health or drug issues that can be addressed. There's a lot of different things I think our sheriff and corrections and meeting with the DA, the public defenders and all that could make a big difference. And I think it's an opportunity now. I mean, we are now discussing how policing is handled in America, and I think it's really a fair thing to shine the light on this department. And it's not about you did something right or wrong. It's really a time to ask for reform and recalculation of business that has been going on, and how can we make it better? And how can we inform the public of what we do and what we pay for and what we expect from our police, our sheriff, our state police, etc. And the extreme militarization of the police is something I'm totally against. I don't like it. It doesn't belong here. And it's increasingly a part of what's going on in America. And I think it's a great time to have Columbia County step up and really examine how we do what we do here with the Sheriff's Department and corrections. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to have the sheriff respond to the information that's been forwarded to him, which he will do. And then I just need some clarification from the governor's office regarding his executive order, his declaration from recently regarding redesigning policing. So once we get that, we can move forward as a board. We'll go on to that next step. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, Ray Stats, I'd just like to say a quick word.
Yes.
I just would like to thank Sheriff Bartlett and his whole department in these difficult times for, a few bad apples set a bad example for, a lot of departments.
It's not in our case in our county, but I'd like to thank him and his department for protecting our constituents and doing a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. You know, we don't agree with what happened out in the Midwest. It was a, you know, I originally said it was a tragedy. It is a tragedy. It's a tragedy on all sides. They have a police officer do that to a man who was at the end unconscious. He's still on top of him. It's ridiculous. That particular police officer's been arrested, and he'll have his day in court. From what I saw, it was totally uncalled for. You know, I do appreciate the people that have been voicing their concerns in the public here in Columbia County, because they've been very good. Any particular type of protest or demonstration has been peaceful. I've even joined in on one because I do agree with what has happened out there is wrong, and it was unjust. So I wanted to thank, if anybody's been involved with any of the different types of protests, thank you for keeping our piece of the world here semi-sane. I mean, you look at other places where there's things being burned and businesses being destroyed, and the people have the right to voice their opinion, and I stand beside them and support them in doing that.
Thank you, Bartlett. Well, I'm going to invite you to the next New Lebanon rally. We had about 100 people, and we have the state police barracks here in town, so I reached out to them to invite them, and they did not choose to stand with us. So next time I'll give you a call.
You call me and I will be there. I'm dead serious on that.
I just want to say that we had a Chalk for Change rally in Germantown a couple of Sundays ago, and the sheriff's office had someone in the area to make sure that everybody was safe. It was very peaceful, very respectful, and people let their voices be heard, and everything went very, very well. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Unless there's somebody else, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you all.
You too.